A week before Christmas, 2015, our son Javier got sick. He got an ear infection, which wasn't a big deal. Got ear infections throughout his childhood, so we weren't alarmed by that. I took him to the doctor and they prescribed an antibiotic, so he started it right away. And we started to notice, I think maybe right around Christmas or the 26th, we started to notice some odd behavior. My husband and I were wondering, what he was doing, and we said, hey, come back and take off your shoes, and he seemed confused by that, and he took them off, didn't really put them where they would normally go, by the door, and then said something to us about wanting to go take a nap. At this time, he was 12 years old. He was in 6th grade, so naps were a thing of the past. I had prepared his cereal and had it ready for him, and I remember him sitting down at the table and just looking at the bowl of cereal, and he didn't have any sort of reaction on his face, but he looked at me and he said, "Am I supposed to eat this?" And so at that moment, I was thinking, okay, and he wasn't joking, and so, because he can kid around and joke around, and we love that about him, his sense of humor, but he wasn't joking at all, and so I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Why is he asking me if he's supposed to eat this? So I called my brother, and my brother's a doctor in Georgia, in Marietta. And I was describing to him some of the symptoms or some of the things that he had been doing for the previous days. And my brother said that we needed to get him to the pediatrician as soon as possible. I spoke with the pediatrician outside of the room, the examination room, where Javi waited with my friend, and just told her what was going on. And she agreed that it was very strange, and suggested that right away we go home and get some things together and head to Wolfson's, and that he was admitted. This was on the 28th of December, and 2015 again, and we spent 6 nights in the hospital. We ran a bunch of tests. Specialists came in from every different area running all these different tests. We had family members that were first and foremost praying for us. So they ran all these tests and couldn't find anything that was wrong. And so as each day passed, we just started to see that he would continue to slip further and further away from us, sort of mentally, like cognitively, in terms of his thinking abilities. He would barely have a conversation with us. If we asked him something, he would repeat the question and then give maybe a one-word answer. And those things were absolutely terrifying because we didn't know what was wrong. And when you feel like you can't help your child because it's something beyond your control, you sort of feel helpless. And so again, we had people praying, and I continued to read my devotionals every day. You want to keep hope alive in terms of what's going to be the outcome, but when you don't have an answer about what's wrong, it's kind of difficult. So I felt like our family and our friends really rallied around us, and emotionally and spiritually from where they were, and support us through this, because it was definitely the scariest thing that we had to deal with at that and still since as parents. At some point he just really started to retreat more into himself. And so I compare it to having a grandmother, 2 grandmothers that went through Alzheimer's. As far as his ability to function, he wasn't himself at all. This kid who is, math is his strong suit, he was taking pre-algebra in 6th grade. He couldn't tell us what 2 + 2 was in the hospital. And the only thing that they found after one test, the only thing was a slight infection of the brain tissue, something called acute encephalopathy. And they couldn't say what really triggered it. So the turning point was when, it sounds kind of crazy to say it now, but I had a hair appointment. And so you had encouraged me to keep the appointment and go, just to get out of the hospital, because I'd been there around the clock. So I went to the hair appointment, and I was telling my stylist, and I was telling another stylist there about what was going on, what we were dealing with at that moment at the hospital. And her name is Pat. The other stylist said to me, what you need to do is, while you're there, you need to pray for the healing for other people, the other kids that are there that you see. The other kids that you see that are going through things that are, now that you know that your son, it didn't seem like it was life-threatening, so we knew that that was off the table, but it was just a reduced sort of mental capacity, and behavior-wise, not really knowing how to do things anymore. So she said, you need to pray for other people's kids that are there, that are going through cancer, and other treatments and things like that. And just wait and see once you start getting your focus off your son. Not to say to ignore our son, of course, but we were so consumed with what was going on with him. She said, just start looking at others around you and start praying for them. And it didn't really make much sense to me at the time, but I was like, okay, I'll try it. And there were parents that were holding their young kids in their arms because they couldn't walk. Or others that were walking and they had like IV attached, and I just started praying for the other ones that I could see around me. It was a small group, maybe like 20 of us. And I started praying for them. And I wish I could say that, something incredible happened at that moment, but nothing did. It just felt good to pray for them. She forgot to tell me that would be a benefit of it, that it would feel good to pray for them. And Javi, who didn't initiate conversations anymore. It had been a couple of days now where he just wouldn't start a conversation at all, and barely respond. So he said to me as I was coming out of the bathroom, he said, "Help." And it was barely audible. So I wasn't sure if I'd heard it or not. And I said, I'm sorry, what did you say, sweetheart? And he said, "Help." And I leaned closer and I said, "What do you need help with?" And he said, "I'm confused." And so for him to acknowledge that, I felt like something was starting to change. Something was turning. There was something else, a commercial on TV that was about a phone or some electronic device. And I think, you remember that? And I think you'd made a joke about getting it for yourself or getting it for him or something, and he had some kind of snide remark to make about it, or like, "Yeah, right, Dad," or something that showed like sarcasm and things that we had obviously taken for granted for 12 years. But all of these things were just, whatever he was saying to us was amazing. So medical staff was baffled. We were somewhat surprised. Family members, people of faith, were not surprised, because we knew that this was God at work, and we had never experienced anything so scary in our lives with our son, and on the other hand, so miraculous in terms of how the recovery came about. So, and I guess I just want to encourage people that if you're ever faced with something that's so terrifying that you have nowhere else to turn, and not that it should be a last resort, but just to hold on to your faith and let people surround you with their love and their faith, because I think their faith stepped in where ours might have been a little weak at times when we were not seeing any progress or any answers, because God can move in ways that you just would never ever expect, and it will give you the ability to praise Him for that. And you can recall that instance when you have something else that comes up. You can recall His faithfulness in that instance and hold on to that, as if you got me through that, then I know that you can get me through anything.